I'm Mina Malik Hussain, and this is The Coffee Table. And today I'm bouncing off my seat just a little bit more than usual because we have such a fun show today. We're going to be doing my favorite thing to do on The Coffee Table, talk about books with talented, brilliant authors who are from Pakistan doing amazing things for Pakistani writing. And I really feel like these two authors who are joining me today on set are leading the charge of the kind of renaissance of Pakistani writing and, you know, taking the world by storm. And I'm so happy to be welcoming on set with me today Mr. Awais Khan, who is the author of In the Company of Strangers, which was published by Simon & Schuster, the Book Guild, and the audiobook is coming out with Isis Audio. His second book is forthcoming from Orenda Books in the summer of this year. It's called No Honor. And as if this wasn't enough, Awais is also the founder of the Writing Institute here in Lahore and studied creative writing at the Faber Academy in London. And joining me from Abu Dhabi is my friend Sabah Karim Khan, whose wonderful, brilliant new book, Skyfall, is out now with Bloomsbury. She is an author, a filmmaker, and an educator. She teaches at the New York University's Abu Dhabi campus. She has made a wonderful documentary film called Concrete Dreams, Some Roads Lead Home, that basically won the best documentary and best everything at a whole slew of international film festivals. And Skyfall itself is a genius book. So, more of this today on The Coffee Table. Hi, Awais.
Hi, Mina.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So excited. I have both.
Really nice to be here.
I know, and I'm here with the book. So gorgeous.
It is, yeah.
It's such a striking piece.
Wonderful work of the people at Simon & Schuster.
Yeah.
It sort of captured the essence of Lahore somehow.
And it's such a tricky thing because I feel like a lot of times when South Asian writers are writing, and at some period there was a point in time where all the covers were, hennaed hands and a bougainvillea, or some ethnic fabrics.
Exactly.
But now we have, something which is, it's a shrine, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
And there's the moon, and it looks like a woodcut.
I think it's the Badshah Mall. That's the one that they featured. So it's a bit different.
But the cover does change from publisher to publisher, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. The UK edition is slightly different from this one. I think it all depends on the rights. So it's a very complicated sort of business. So if it's world rights, then the cover would probably stay the same because it's the same publisher all over the world.
Right.
So it's kind of like that.
Oh, interesting. These nitty-gritties about, the very publishing world, that it sort of seems like one kind of learns on the job also, because they aren't, it's sort of like maybe a chicken and egg situation where Pakistani writing is still, I kind of feel like, developing and finding its voice.
Yeah.
And then that also means that because we're still new, we don't have a lot of mentorship either. So new writers or upcoming writers don't have that many people to ask for advice either, because it's not really like writing is still is an industry that's only just beginning to kind of, I feel like, flex its muscles.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's the thing. Mentorship is a huge issue in Pakistan.
Yeah.
Also, the fact that, I don't speak for everyone, but a certain segment of people in Pakistan just don't feel that writing is important or reading is very important. So that sort of stops. Because we have so much talent here. When I started the Writing Institute, for example,
How long has it been?
It's been almost 5 years now.
That's great.
And when I started it, people told me that, nobody's going to sign up for your classes. It's like a non-existent
How
thing in Pakistan.
encouraging!
Yeah, exactly. But
it's not going to work.
yeah, everyone said that. And the funny thing is that it's steadily really built up, and there's so much talent in this country. It's just the fact that people don't have the opportunities and they just need the platform.
But I think it's also interesting to kind of think about the sort of mindset to writing as a professional practice also.
That's very important.
Yeah, and I want to sort of cycle back to that. But, first, hi, Sabah.
Mina, Awais, hi. Such a pleasure.
Welcome to the
Sabah.
show. We're so excited because Awais and I have, Awais has blurbed Skyfall. So obviously he's read it and I have rocketed through it. And may I first say congratulations on this magnificent book.
Thank you, Mina. Thank you so much. And both of you, sort of backing it means the absolute world to me. So thank you. I mean that genuinely.
It's really sort of, it's not difficult because it's just great. So Shilpa, tell me, you wear so many creative hats, and you started, and you still academically, you're an anthropologist. So how did an anthropologist end up first making a documentary and then writing this wonderful novel?
Yeah, Mina, I think, I honestly think that I realized a little bit late in life because you recall back in the day, I started a very corporate career.
Yes.
So I was with Citibank. I enjoyed that, to be honest. I can't pretend I didn't.
Yeah.
But I think over time, I also realized that there's a difference between doing things just for the resume and then sort of trying to unearth your calling. And I guess it took me a while coming to that, but I realized my calling in some ways is probably storytelling.
Yes.
And agnostic to medium, to be honest. So whether that is, a documentary, the documentary was completely experimental, Mina, to be frank. Like, it wasn't something super planned. I think it was on the bucket list, and I felt like I really want to experiment with visual storytelling. So that's how that came about. And then the book happened. Honestly, this is a story I've said so much now, but I was sitting at a class in NYU.
Yes. This
We
is
had
such a great
headmaster
story. I
who
love it.
came from-
Yes.
Yeah, and Mina, I'll be like, I've heard it ad nauseum, so please
No,
stop now.
I love hearing it, and I really want to tell the story for my audience because it is just wonderful. So go.
Thank you. So, I had a 1-year-old and I had like a 2.5-week-old, both of these really young daughters at the time, sitting in a class at NYU. We'd invited a headmaster. He was the headmaster of a school in England, and he was speaking to a bunch of our students at NYU, just about mindfulness, about kind of being in the moment, being immersed in the present. And he said something, Mina, which was not originally his quote. He was quoting Henry Thoreau, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And it's not the exact quote, and I'm kind of butchering it, but he said something like, most men and women lead lives of quiet desperation and go to the grave with the song still in them. And he said, take 5 minutes and think about your song and scribble it on a piece of paper, share it with the person who's sitting next to you. And of course, at the time it felt very daunting. I'm like, I've got these 2 small kids, but I also felt like it's something I had been putting off for a very long time and almost forced me to reckon with it in that moment that, yes, what is my song? What is my calling? And I think, no exaggeration, Mina, I think that morning, something quite fundamental shifted, and I feel the seeds of Skyfall were sown that morning, to be honest. And the seeds of storytelling more broadly were sown.
Yeah. And I think it's one of those things that, as somebody who does try to write and also has children, do you feel like on one level, one knows in the back of one's mind that this is a thing that I need to do, but there's so much else that keeps pulling one's attention and one's focus away. And with having little children and having a job and just sort of, because women end up doing a lot of this domestic stuff. So do you feel like that was something that you really kind of had to push through also to kind of get to the kernel of the story that was inside you all along?
Absolutely, Mina. And thanks for bringing that up, because I think it just doesn't get spoken about enough, no matter how much we might be talking about, equality and all those things. And beyond equality, even, when I think about having done part of this through the pandemic,
yes,
the burden on everybody, but I do have to say on working mothers is on steroids, and there's no end in sight. And so I can't pretend it's been an idyllic setting from any stretch of the imagination.
No.
You're exactly like you're saying, you're homeschooling. I'm stuffing mashed food into my 3-year-old's
the baby's mouth.
Pretending like, I'm about to... pretending like, I'm about to sort of do a really fantastic intellectual prologue here.
Exactly.
So it's been really hard. I think, though, that said, Mina, for me, what the foil was, and I think I realized this with a lot of poignancy through something like the pandemic, was that what was my motivation for writing this? Writing Skyfall is not my day job at NYU. No. Like you said, I'm an anthropologist.
Yes.
So of course, they overlap, but it's not like it's going to help me fight for a promotion at work.
Exactly. It's
So
like, hey, I wrote this fiction book, and now you should give me your. Because, that's not how it works.
Exactly. So I think for me, kind of the conversation, I had to back up a little bit and say, what was the motivation for writing 300 pages to begin with?
Yes.
And I think so that helped, but I can't sugarcoat it. It's been very hard, as
No,
you
but
know.
Yes, and I'm really glad that we're talking about the unglamorous of the writer, Awais. And again, you don't have any children, and that's fine. But you do have a room of your own now.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's so much of the writing life. Like you're sitting here with this wonderful finished book and 2 books under your belt now. Yeah. But a lot of it is just kind of sitting down and just plugging away at it. And do you feel like sometimes people don't realize that kind of grit that goes into writing?
Oh yeah, I think people sometimes glamorize writing a lot as well.
A lot.
Yeah.
Not sometimes, all the time. It's like, like you have a typewriter.
Yeah.
You're just like smoking and bashing away at the typewriter.
But it's actually quite hard because you have deadlines to meet. Like with my upcoming novel, No Honor, I had like a 2-month deadline that I had to meet. So it was very...
2 months?
For the edits.
Oh, okay.
Then first I had to finish it. Then it's the whole process of submitting the book to publish it and stuff. But I had a deadline to submit edits, and then because then they have to design the cover and everything, and they really have a schedule in place and the publication date in place. So it's quite stressful actually.
It's like a whole machinery that you kind of then get plugged into.
Yeah.
So what has been your motivation for writing your books?
Well, I think I always wanted to write. Even as a child, my parents would take me to these toy stores and stuff, and I'd end up buying books. So I think
Same, brother. Yeah. Shake your hand from across.
So I think that thing was always there, and it wasn't until I was in college that I thought that I might want to write someday. And then obviously college, you don't really have the time to do that.
True.
So then I sort of I took the Faber courses, and that's where it all started. But yeah, I really wanted to tell not exactly my point of view, but just a story that came to me. I've been in a certain moving in certain society for a while, and I wanted to show that the most important thing was that I wanted to show that toxicity still exists even in the higher circles. So a lot of people think that just because some people are privileged or rich, like women, they're not suffering.
Yeah.
I wanted to show that they are, and that it's going well and strong even in 2021, which is quite atrocious.
No, absolutely. Like Sabah said, like there's this conversation about equality, and there's a conversation about more rights and about going out there and taking what's yours.
Yeah.
But I think like so many structures are still so firmly in place that. And in a way, actually, the conversation around that, I think that books are one essential way of having that conversation in an accessible way also, and in a way that doesn't kind of put anyone's back up. And you know how like a lot of times if you speak to somebody and they're like, well, I believe in equal rights and in equal pay, but I'm not a feminist. And one is like, that's kind of what you are now.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry to break it to you. Yeah. But if you that might not be a conversation that you could comfortably have at like a dinner party.
True.
But you could talk about a book.
Yeah, and there are several ways to tell a story. So in some ways you offer an explanation, you offer a resolution of sorts. But in some cases you provoke outrage that this kind of thing does exist, and that's what I tried to do within the Company of Strangers, to show that how toxic our society still is towards women, and it's really tough.
Yeah, and I feel like Moni Mohsen puts it really well. She's like, because she's a satirist, and she says it's really like holding a mirror up.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people, ironically, don't even kind of recognize the mirror. They're like, oh, that's funny, but that's not me.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know who she is.
Yeah,
or he is, for that matter.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
We're going to take a very quick break here and come back to this riveting conversation. Stay with us. Welcome back to the coffee table. We're in conversation with authors Awais Khan and Sabah Kareem Khan. They're not related. About the wonderful work that they are doing and their fantastic novels, and it's all extremely exciting. So Sabah, tell me, do you feel like on one level, writing a novel is a kind of written anthropology? Because it is, in a way, like all of these ways of storytelling are ways in which we are trying to kind of better understand who we are and where we come from, and kind of make sense of the world that we experience.
Absolutely, Mina. And this is funny because it takes me back to our really old conversations about, just writing and sort of how these different, how these different mediums are related. And I think if I think about Skyfall, people often say, oh, okay, what research went into it? And you think, well, I'm not sure I really sat down and, researched it in the sense, say, I would research an academic paper.
Yeah.
But I think what I've realized, the reason why I think anthropology and my fiction writing are conversant is that, for example, what's inspired a lot of the world of Skyfall, at least the part that's in Lahore and then the characters, are the days and nights that I spent on those streets and alleys,
Yes.
Of the not so sanitized, not so touristy version of Lahore, which were those, have these really visceral impressions of those internet cafes with the neon signs and the dimly lit bulbs.
Absolutely.
And of these dancing girls. And I think for me, like at the time I was researching it for an anthropological piece, and I didn't know this was going to make its way somehow into a novel later on.
Yeah.
But I have to say that I think it's given that part of Lahore in the novel legs to stand on. So, you're not kind of delivering it in this voyeuristic, exoticized way, because I feel like, you've also always got that fear of, am I pandering to the tropes, which is obviously easy enough to fall to, and so I think for me, definitely that sort of research, without even for the film, for example, I was talking to these young street children and these footballers in Liari in Karachi. At the time, I didn't know that street life was going to somehow make it into fiction writing. But I think so in some ways, those sorts of things do become conversant. And I think for me, Mina, the biggest thing becomes that it helps me avoid a little bit of that succumbing to that trope kind of conversation, which I struggle with when I consume South Asian literature.
Yes.
So, you think of Pakistan and it's like you're going to think of all things combustible and like just ragged children treading their way through a street. And you realize, yes, that's there.
Yeah.
But, and this also kind of goes back to the conversation, Aves, and you were having earlier about, what's the perspective you want to, or what is just your vantage point? And I think I see that when it comes to Pakistan, that yes, of course it's imperfect. Of course you have these issues, but it's a lot more nuanced and a lot more complex than that. And kind of to say things can be broken, but they can be beautiful. I think that was my big sort of idea with Skyfall, to say hope has to be front and center. I don't think I can write without that.
And thank God, because there's so much out there that isn't particularly hopeful. And I feel like, but I'm glad that you brought up that sort of self-consciousness. And I'm curious about specific, and not South Asian, but Pakistani writers, and how we do have a certain kind of worldview. We've been raised in a certain culture and been exposed to a certain culture. So it's only natural that the stories that we want to tell will come from that milieu. So whether one is writing about Karachi or Lahore, and invariably, I don't think that we could tell a story that didn't have like a masjid and an azan in it, or the canal or people trees or something that, it sounds like ethnic and indigenous, but it's also our lived reality. So sort of how to sort of navigate ways to write about it without somebody else saying that, oh, this is such a cliche.
Mina, thank you for bringing that up. I've been thinking about this for so long myself, just to say that, a lot of times we say, oh yeah, we're writing about these things because, hey, that's the only thing that's going to be considered important in the West, or that's going to be publish worthy. And I think what I've realized is, I was thinking this last night, funnily, exactly what you said. I'm like, at the moment, at least, I think we're so immersed in this as our everyday kind of embodied reality that it's hard to, yes, I don't want to portray it in the sense of dumbing women down or caricaturing it. I think that's the differentiation we want to make. And I think I was very, very conscious of that. I don't know whether I've done it well or not, but I was conscious of doing that in Skyfall. That, hey, you don't want to have that impression of either the oppressed, veiled woman or either the vile, fast, out there woman. I think you definitely want to show the grays, and you want to show that women can be vulnerable and resilient and contradictory and messy. But I think I would struggle, irrespective of whether the thing got published or not, to write about something which is so distant from my day to day. I feel this is what I'm immersed in at the moment. And yes, there are ways of navigating that trope conversation to say, of course, you don't want to show everything and everyone as a bearded terrorist, and kind of at some level you want to rip open those boxes and say, hey, like, I'm going to unchain these Pakistani women and show some miracles that can happen when that happens as well. But we get a lot of flack for this, that everyone's writing about this particular these particular issues and nothing more. And much as, of course, I want the day to come where I can be writing about a woman in space or like a horror story. But for me personally, I think at the moment, I think the thing that speaks to me most vociferously are the issues that I find myself immersed in, that I found myself immersed in as a woman of color growing up in a city like Karachi or a country like Pakistan.
Yeah. And I see sort of nodding vociferously here. On the side, he's like, yes, not vociferously, mutely. But it's true, because I think that what Sabaa said about being immersed in a certain moment and your story kind of emerging from that moment, I think is something that is a really valuable way to think about the writing. Like if we were talking about Company, for example, would you say that's true for you also, that at the time of the writing, this was this particular story that you had, and you were just in that zone wanting to tell that story? And it's sort of, did you have similar anxieties while writing this?
Well, yeah, I did have a lot of anxiety because it deals with some very disturbing themes. If you've read it, I mean, obviously you have.
I have read it.
But it's always hard. But I think at some point it's very important to put some distance between yourself and the characters. So a lot of people sometimes make the mistake of thinking that whatever is in the book is a reflection of the author's personal opinion, which is not the case.
But that's very important. I mean, we should say it again for the people at the back.
It's the first rule of fiction writing. Is
that whatever that a writer is writing about doesn't mean that it's about them and their family.
Exactly.
And that they agree with these things. Sometimes you're just telling the story.
And
a lot of people say that, that's a cop-out, but that's simply not true.
Exactly. And that's the thing about fiction writing. If it weren't true, then you'd be writing a memoir or a non-fiction piece. I mean, it's fiction, you see.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I really echo what Sabaa said about shades of grey. That's very important. So you have to, these days nobody's interested in an all-out villain or an all-out nice person. So they want to see people with shades of grey, and that's what I did in The Company of Strangers. That nobody's a hero in there, and they all bring their prejudices, and they have their own attitudes and judgment. They're judgmental, and some of them are very sexist as well, which is what Pakistani society is, unfortunately. So so I really thought that it was important to show that these things also exist in every circle of life, and not just in a specific sphere of life.
Quite
it's
right.
like everywhere.
And I feel like there has been a sort of conversation around this also, where people are like, well, you're a man and you're writing about women's issues, and to some people that doesn't feel authentic. But that's also a little unfair. Like, what does that mean, that then women can't write men characters, or that only some people can talk about some things?
That's a very important discussion, actually. So I don't think I'm intelligent enough to answer this, but but I do feel that people should be allowed to write what they want to write, and there's no problem at all in a man writing about a woman. I think, like I said, there's a certain distance between yourself and your character, so it's not necessarily a reflection of yourself. So a lot of readers who've read In the Company of Strangers, they related more to Mona than they did to the other guy. They're like, you wrote her more convincingly. So it just goes on to show that men can write about women. I mean, I don't know if, obviously no opinion is universal,
of
right?
course.
But I mean, from what people have said, they have liked it so far.
Well, that's good. And again, the thing is that it's important to sort of keep having these conversations where do you feel like it's also a place where readers also then start thinking about these things, and if do you think it's valuable for readers to kind of understand the writing process a little bit as well? Do you think it's helpful, or it's not really necessary for them to kind of
I think so, reading, that's the first step into being a writer. You have to read a lot. So reading does sort of teach you how to write. So you learn a lot about showing and not telling, which is the golden rule of fiction writing. But yeah, I think reading is the key. It's the first step to being a writer.
Yeah. Now, Awais, you have 2 books out now,
Yeah.
mashallah, almost. And do you feel that, and again, Simon & Schuster, this is an international thing, and Sabah's book is out with Bloomsbury, but do you feel like, and this is a kind of conversation that has been happening over the world, especially with writers of color, who feel like a lot of publishers want a specific kind of story from people of color. But do you feel like that's been the case with you?
Well, that is true, to be honest. People do expect a certain type of story from Pakistani authors, but now I think things are changing. Like I wrote about the concept of honor in my upcoming book. So my publisher has been nothing but supportive. She's been literally, and she didn't even edit it heavily. So I mean, she did obviously, but she made sure that my voice was still there. So it wasn't like she imposed her thoughts or her whatever her mindset was. So that was really refreshing for me. And she was very keen to bring out the Pakistani thing in the book rather than, italicizing those words and all of that. So she's like, we're not going to do that.
Oh, that's great.
So yeah,
that's fun.
So she's been amazing in that regard. So I think things are changing. There are lots of intrepid publishers out there who are taking risks now. So I hope, and as you know, a lot of genre fiction is coming out of Pakistan.
So exciting.
Yeah. So
extremely exciting. But Sabah, do you feel like that is? What do you think about that? Do you feel like as the new kids on the block, there are no new stories, but there are stories that can be told in new ways. So even though we can say that the foundations are the same, because again, that sort of lived experience hasn't changed a lot, but there are ways that we can keep talking about these things that are important to us, but do it in ways that are not sort of panderish and are not cliched and are not, saying what people want to hear.
I mean, absolutely. I Mina, that's how I see it as well. That, and this is again, I think, hammering a similar point to the one Awais made right now, which is that, yeah, I mean, I'm not sure, and I guess I'm too new to it to say whether publishers are going to be taking on risks. Like I was saying, if I did a story of a Desi woman like somewhere in space, would that fly? I have no idea if we're at that stage yet and whether that would require like bigger paradigm shift. But I do believe, and very similar to what Awais's experience has been, even with Bloomsbury, I was surprised that as far as structure and plot and sort of, the spirit that crystallizes the book and its characters go, like, I don't think publishers are looking to make massive edits and they want that discernible, raw. Like a lot of people have come back to me and said, we love the fact that Skyfall reads as raw.
It does.
And I think, I was conscious of that, Mina, that editing can also give you an over-sanitized sort of version with, all the imperfections and the chaos lost. And I feel somewhere I tried to embrace that. Now, coming back to your question, I think there are definitely unique and sort of there are ways of telling a story that don't seem reductible.
Yes.
So whether it's about male characters that I'm trying to chalk out in a novel, or whether that goes back to the conversation about how we're representing Pakistan. I kept thinking with Skyfall, are there ways I can represent Pakistan as an equal in literature, which doesn't dumb down women from Hira Mandi, which doesn't show Pakistan in a cookie cutter kind of, I've taken something like the Me Too and now I'm going to have a placard in my hand and be shouting about feminism. I mean, the point kind of being, my rule of thumb was, can I have a character that is loud, but at the same time quietly fierce and equally powerful? And I think publishers are allowing people of color to come up with that, to kind of explore that middle passageway, which is neither black nor white, which is not trying to stuff our women or our country into all things, sort of extremist. I think there's fatigue around that.
That certain way of doing things.
Where you can show women who will express agency in ways that are maybe not typically Western. So, we're not jumping onto this bandwagon that has just emerged from there, but maybe we're coming up with more sort of grassroots and, localized ways of expressing ourselves. And I think, Mina, given the fact that the publishing industry in Pakistan right now is still sort of reviving, and in some ways it's still nascent. I mean, there are commendable efforts that are being made, but we still rely a lot on sort of being published out of Pakistan. And so in that sense, validation still relies on outside of Pakistan. I think the needle is moving. And I think Awais's work is a great example of that. Like, it's not easy to look at his characters and say, oh, here's a neat little sanitized arc he's taking us through to be rooting for this one person. And, I think that's a fantastic example. I loved it.
Yes, well done. We're going to take a very quick break here and come back to this clearly wonderful conversation. Stay with us. Welcome back to the coffee table. We're in conversation with authors Awais Khan and Saba Karim Khan about Pakistani writing and their books. And I'm having so much fun. I wish this show was longer. We were talking about this in the break, and I love these in the break conversations that you didn't know about. But we were talking about getting into trouble and the sort of things that you have so far written about, like domestic violence, and you're going to, the new book is about, honor killing, and it's set in a much more rural setting as well. So then you have the whole kind of village dynamic coming into it also. Yeah. And, you probably will get into some kind of trouble, like your characters.
Yeah.
But isn't that great? Because I keep thinking of, John Lewis, the civil rights activist, who talks about getting into good trouble. So do you feel like, as a writer, you have to be prepared to get into some kind of good trouble?
Yeah. And I also feel that it's very important to shine a light on certain things that are happening in Pakistan.
Yeah.
I mean, we need to see more genre fiction and everything, but it's also very important to see, to examine what's going on in our rural societies. So for example, for No Honor, that comes out later this year with Orinda Books. So I did a lot of research with how rural life is like and what exactly goes on there. So what I saw, what I heard, literally shocked me that, it's still, Pakistan is progressing, it's progressive, but still it's, society can be very regressive as well. So it's like literally worlds apart.
Quite right. So, and I love, Saba, that in Skyfall, they're troublemakers with a capital T, because I love that. Like, I love that Rania, and she has these friends. And what is your idea of a troublemaker as a writer? What kind of trouble are you getting into?
I loved, first of all, what you said about good trouble. I think that's got to be the way forward.
Yeah.
Now, when I was writing it again, I think, going back to what we were saying earlier about what issues are we immersed in, what concerns us, I find that, as a girl growing up in Pakistan, there's this white noise and this surround sound, that all too well, right? And I know that men would have their own set of issues. The point kind of being they get hushed up in all those years of growing up. And now I find it hard to disentangle my storytelling from those issues. It seems very intimately bound. And so even with Skyfall, and I'm so glad you picked up on that I deliberately did keep a capital T, because I feel like it is sort of pronounish to me.
Yes.
That is her identity. And that's, in some ways, I think that's just a metaphor for so many situations and people that we see. Now, it's not to say that doesn't make you, as an author or any kind of creative person, putting your, kind of song out into the universe. It's not as if you are completely doing it agnostic to feeling a bit nervous, feeling a bit uncomfortable, because let's just say there are gatekeepers of dogma and purity that, could potentially lash out. And I think, we all sort of react to that humanly. But I also did feel, Mina, that it would be an insincere attempt to write all these pages and kind of try and gloss over, exactly like Awais is saying, issues that make us seethe. Like, why does one undertake something like a book or any creative endeavor? And so I guess the point, and to be honest, I think the reaction in Pakistan, I mean, I was at a book club in Abu Dhabi 2 days ago with a bunch of Pakistani and Indian women, just this intimate gathering, almost reminding me of like that campfire storytelling kind of thing, when they were discussing Skyfall. And it made me realize that I think sometimes we also discredit our readers a little bit. Like, of course, there are different facets that are going to react differently.
Yes.
But I think there are enough people out there with this desire to read stories about Pakistan that are not exoticizing the place, that are showing the place in as realistic a manner as can be. So I don't know. I mean, I feel like I quite enjoy, having
Stirring the pot
I
up
quite
a little.
enjoy.
She's very brave then.
No, but I wonder, and again, I can't prove for other sort of, writers coming from other cultures, but do you feel like in Pakistan, one is a little too close to the author also, or maybe because of social media, you can be that close also, but just sort of, that whole idea of, what would people say? What are people going to think about me and my family? Are they going to think, do you think that I'm sure that these are things that make writers writing on a certain level nervous about it. And again, because I think in Pakistan, so it can feel very small sometimes,
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And that does play a factor sometimes. But that's what I decided when I was writing in the company of strangers, that if I started thinking about what others would think about me writing about certain things, then I'm done. Then there's no point in being a writer. Then, you just don't.
Yeah.
Because it's very important to be dedicated to what you're doing, I feel.
Wow.
And also the fact that, it's just... in Pakistan, for a country of over 210 million people, I think 220, it can be a rather small place sometimes. And I think social media has made it even smaller. Yeah. And anyone and everyone can get in touch with you these days. And
I'd be like,
exactly.
What was that?
Exactly.
On page 12.
And some people tag me on my Instagram and with in a bad review, and I'm like,
that's so
really?
mean.
I see. I mean, that's like it's one of our codes, You don't tag an author in a bad review.
It's bad.
Because, I mean, no matter how cool we act or whatever.
Or feel.
Yeah. I mean, bad reviews always sort of make you rethink everything. You're like, okay, did I even write a good book or not? But then the good ones, they sort of remind you that, you have written a good book.
Because it is ultimately at the heart of it, such a vulnerable act that you you tell this story and you're so invested in it and you really believe in it and you put it out there into the world and it's disheartening for people to be like, wow.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine. Everyone is entitled to their opinion.
Absolutely.
That's very important. That's when you put something out in the world, you should expect anything and everything.
Quite right.
But I think it's, tagging someone and making sure they see that.
That's just malicious.
That's a little,
that's not a nice comment. That's not constructive feedback.
Yeah, exactly.
But talking of feedback, and this is something that I'm also curious about, and I think it's a question that a lot of people ask many times, is that you also run the Writing Institute.
Yeah.
And clearly it's been doing well, touch wood, and people are really keen and your classes do really well. So do you think that, and because there are these two approaches to it, where it's like you can do a writing course or you can not do a writing course, and both people are able to produce great fiction. Yeah. So what value do you feel a writing course does bring to writers?
I think they're absolutely excellent, and that's the reason why I launched this, because yes, to some extent, writing talent can be innate. A lot of people think, I get these messages all the time that you're probably fraud because talent is innate. What are you doing? But I'm a living example of the fact that you can learn how to write. If you saw my writing from 10 years ago, you'd probably laugh at me. It was really that bad.
Yeah.
So I learned a lot from my courses at Faber and then later on again at Faber. And just generally, as I've improved my craft and taken other short courses as well. But I think they really, really help. And more importantly, they help you build a community. Writing is a very solitary activity. And unless you have a tribe around you to support you, to motivate you, to get you to the finish line, then, otherwise you can't.
No, absolutely. And I think that you specifically, I must sort of applaud you for doing this, is that you've been so generous in helping people and responding to people and reaching out. And Sabah, do you agree? Because I feel like, again, as a kind of fledgling community of writers, we really need to kind of band together and not just pump each other up in just sort of sycophantic ways and say, oh my God, you're amazing. but kind of give that kind of really genuine and sincere advice and support, and for other writers to sort of seek community.
Oh gosh, Mina, I could talk about this for the rest of the day. Because again, I think so much of it is also that it goes back to this conversation about the creative ecosystem in a place like Pakistan, which I know we're kind of, the needle's moving on it, but still, it's like it can feel a little bit leakish. Slow moving, bilkul, we're in slow motion. It's like it can feel a little bit, I say this about myself all the time, that I started out completely clueless. I think maybe, that's changed a little bit, but just in the sense that about 2 to 3 months in the lead up to Skyfall, honestly, Mina, I stopped opening Twitter because I felt like it can start feeling so insular and it can start feeling so cliquish.
Yes.
And again, it's like you don't have, you feel like a bit of an outsider. But then I think the good news is that it is exactly something like Twitter that introduced me to people like Awais and people like, Usman Hanif, etc., who have really, there are a handful of such people who I've come across, but that kind of meaningful connection and that solidarity that you really crave. And it's exactly like you're saying, I feel it's so important because the journey can be so daunting.
Yes.
It can be so isolating. But I guess there's one other thing, Mina, which is to say that given we're in a world where sort of social media interaction is inevitable, it's,
Yes. And
that
encouraged even.
discerning lens. Yeah, and that discerning lens between reality and however much we might say it,
Yes.
you get kind of roped into it. And I think I've kind of really tried to put myself on a very conscious journey with Skyfall to say, it's not as if somebody comes to you and says, oh, that really connected, or, there was a line that felt haunting or chilling. Of course, that makes you feel good. But I think somewhere you also do have to realize that this is your voice, this is your song, and kind of start working a little bit agnostic to this craving for that validation. You have to disband that frame of expectation somewhere, and it's not easy. Awais is absolutely right. I think it's in such poor taste when somebody will tag you. When the armchair critics, I don't get that whole world at all, but
social media is their breeding ground.
Exactly. But I think I just feel somewhere it is so important to try and seek that solidarity. Like I was saying to you, the morning I woke up to Awais's blurb, and I'm thinking, he doesn't need to be so nuanced in his backing. But it just made me feel like, oh gosh, there are people out there, few and far between, but they are there who are comfortable enough in their own skin to say, yes, I'm a published author, but hey, I'll find a way to shepherd you in. And I can't express enough gratitude for that, because you can't take that for granted in an otherwise very insular kind of...
Quite right. And what I really enjoyed about the blurb was that here you have another Pakistani writer blurbing a Pakistani writer, and who was able to really kind of pinpoint that little bit about how he says that this is a book about Lahore and all Lahoreans should read it. Like, he got that, and you have so many wonderful blurbs, but from white people also, or people who are not Pakistani. But I feel like that was just such an amazing moment for me to read, is that, wow, here we have community where you can read each other's work and get it.
Absolutely.
And really kind of hit through the heart of it.
Yeah.
And also blurb it.
Absolutely.
The more of us out there, then we'll be able to do these things for each other.
And to be honest, it was actually an honor to blurb her book. It really is an amazing book. It's true. I sort of stress it again. Lahoreans should read it because it's a very accurate portrayal of Lahore.
Yeah. And now we must not become an echo chamber of praise. But thank you so much, Awais. And thank you so much, Sabah, for joining me today. Both books are beautiful. And I'm not just saying this as an echo chamber, as a writer and a literature person. They're gorgeous. I'm so proud that we have these kind of books out there in the world. We have writers who are telling our stories and who are doing it beautifully. Awais's new book is out in the summer, No Honor. Keep an eye out for that. Skyfall is available at Liberty Books online if you're in Pakistan. You'll get it in 2 days and rocket through it, as I did. Thank you guys for watching. If you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe. Buy your books. Don't pirate them. And we will see you next time on The Coffee Table. Bye now.